The new weapon line is finally out, and the new Astral Fall or Astral Staff weapon is actually one of the coolest looking new weapons in the game that just got added along with the new sword and new spear. And today I'm going to show you how powerful it can actually be for Stalker Corrupted Dungeons. So sit back, relax, and let me tell you how you can beat essentially everyone in the Stalker Corrupted Dungeons with the new Astral Staff and the new Starfall skill. Okay, so let's look at the build itself first, and let's talk about all of the skills that you need for this specific build. So, of course, first and foremost, the Astral Staff. If you are looking to buy the Astral Staff, I highly recommend you just craft it. You buy 50 of the crystal shards, go to the energy manipulator, get the artifact for this, which is the Star Touched Crystal. It will cost you, at the time of the recording, around 200k. All right, it's only 200k to get the artifact for any of the new weapons, and you just craft a flat 4. I would recommend a flat 4, and then use runes and souls to get it to tier 4.2, which is a lot cheaper than just buying it flat out from the market. Now, this specific weapon, I was able to get it for around 250k. I bought the tier 2 flat, and I enchanted it to tier 4.2. So we'll call it 300k actually. Just to be fair for you, 300k, by the time you're watching this, it's probably going to be super, super cheap. But yeah, it's the Astral Staff, which is the typical, with the typical skills of the Arcane Staff. The chain missile. The chain missile shoots a chain missile like that, and make sure to take advantage of the second effect of this as well. Whenever you hit an enemy, there is going to be arcane charges on them. So if you deal another damage, instead of just leaving them as is, you deal Q like that, and you press your normal attack, it will deal 204 magical damage on top of the 490 that the initial hits from the chain missile. That's really good. It's a typical Arcane Staff skill though. The next one is the Enigma Blade. Again, a typical Arcane Staff build for Corrupted Dungeons. The Enigma Blade is the one that looks like that. And if you hit an enemy, you can actually use the second ability to blink. That is really good for when you're chasing your opponents or for when you are trying to run away. But most of the time, if you don't really need to blink, don't use the second ability because it does increase the cooldown to 20 seconds instead of just 11 seconds if you only use the first Enigma Blade. It does deal significant amount of damage, which is wild for an 11 seconds cooldown skill. It deals 668 for just one of that swipe blade. Okay, the star. Before we go to the star of the show, though, the passive that you want to do is Lingering Power. This is actually one of the most ridiculous passives in the game because after you cast any spell at all, any spell, right, it will increase your auto attack speed by 120%, which helps with activating the arcane charges on your enemies to deal significantly more damage. It increases your auto attack range by 33% for the next 3 auto attacks within 3 seconds. So you basically have a fast attack that deals an okay damage. Obviously, normal attacks for mages don't really deal significant damage, but if you pair it with the chain missiles, arcane charges, you're going to deal almost like 50% more damage than just using your Q. And with this, it has 3 seconds cooldown, so it's pretty good, I would say. Really good damage on everything. And now, the star of the show, no pun intended, is called the Starfall. This is the Starfall, the most glorious looking skill among all 3 of the new weapon lines that was launched today. It's called Starfall. It shoots down a shower, star shower, dealing 245 damage in a 9-meter radius around you every 0.6 seconds while channeling for up to 6 seconds. So if you do the math, that's actually times 10. That's 10 times hits. But with Albion Online, when you actually activate the skill, On the 0, it actually deals damage right away. If you do that, the first hit is at 0. So you're technically looking at 11 hits here. 11 hits of 245 damage. So do a quick calculation on that. That is around 2,700 damage. Obviously, before resistances, before all of your buffs, that's around 2,700 damage on your E ability while you are channeling for 6 seconds. And take note, you cannot be interrupted with this. You cannot be interrupted, but there's a very obvious counter to this, which is reflect. You can still be reflected, although you are increasing your resilience penetration by 35%. It's not really like increasing your defense by 35%, so you are still vulnerable against reflex. But while channeling, you can still move. There is no added movement speed effect, so you are going to be at walking speed. So there's that. You have to take note of that. It has an energy cost of 36, which is so low because your chain missile is at 19. So basically 2 chain missiles, only 2 Qs for your Starfall in terms of energy cost is wild. Again, around 2,700 damage for the entire duration of your E. It's pretty good. You will see in some of the fights later that it is actually really powerful. To pair your Astral Staff with some of the armor sets that I recommend, I went with a very basic. Since this is going to be super expensive anyways, I'm just trying to save on some of the other armor sets. So we are going to use the Hunter Hood. If you know Hunter Hood, you know Hunter Hood. It reflects 85% of the incoming damage as magical damage and increases your damage resistance by 58 for 3 seconds. That is obviously just to reflect all of the big damages that your opponent has. And you do be careful with the Hunter Hood as well. Although it has 3 seconds cooldown or 3 seconds duration, it can still deal significant damage to you when you are fully reflected. On the passive, you want to use the first passive with the Balanced Mind that increases your damage and healing by 1.5% and increases your defense by basically 1%. I was really looking for a chest piece here that would work for this build, and the Mage Robe, I think, is one of the best. The Mage Robe is a Purging Shield, increases your damage resistance by 88 for 4 seconds, and every time you take direct damage, all buffs on the attackers will be purged, and it has a 35 seconds cooldown. So what you want to do really is before you use your as Starfall, use Mage Robe as Starfall. It is kind of still obvious that you have the Mage Robe, but most of the time they attack you while you have that. So they will pop a defensive like a Hunter Hood and attack you, basically purging themselves. If they purge their defensives, it's pretty much game over because they cannot get out of that unless they have Blink or like Frost Shot or Boots. Unless they have any of those, you can easily take just pure damage from your Starfall. And that's pretty good. For the Boots, I went with a typical... Oh, for the Mage Robe, you also want to go with Aggression, the first passive that increases your damage by another 8%. For the boots, I went with the typical plate boots. The Guardian boots is obviously, I think it's way better. But you can argue that you can use Soldier boots on this. Soldier boots maybe with the Wanderlust so that you have insane boost advantage with the Starfall. But I found that using Rejuvenating Sprint with the Starfall also works. So remember, you don't have speed boost on the Starfall similar to what you would have for, say, the Blight Staff. But you can use boots and then E to increase your movement, right? So chase your opponents and still dealing damage, significant damage in a 9-meter radius for that as well. And you also use the Toughness passive for this. It's a typical Corrupted Dungeon set. And for the cape, I went with the Thetford cape, another typical combination for any Arcane Staff. The Thetford cape works really well with your Lingering Power as well, increasing your attack range and auto attack speed. The Thetford cape, if you don't know, just is extra damage when you use normal attacks, and it has a very low cooldown at 15 seconds. So make sure to take advantage of this every 15 seconds to deal 189 damage to your enemies. For the food, I actually went with the Snapper Roast here. Snapper Roast increases your max health by 10.87%, and it grants you lifesteal for 6.62% of the health of the enemy that is enemy lost for the next 30 minutes. So basically increases your health so that you're not too vulnerable when you're using this, because you are exposed. You're very exposed. Also, it has 6% lifesteal, which while you're using it in an AoE setting, especially if you can probably like get them through mobs, you are going to heal some, not a lot, but still some. And lastly, you want to use the healing potion. Again, typical Corrupted Dungeon build, healing potion and pocket Gigantify potion for situations where you need them. So that is basically the entire set, the entire build for the Starfall. You are going to watch some of the highlights of the fights that I fought in today's live stream. And if you have any questions whatsoever or any build recommendations that you want to see in the future, leave them in the comment section below. Before you go, I'm live right now and we're giving away a mammoth up until the end of the month of April. So if you want to come out and join, hang out, click the first link in the description below to visit our Twitch live page thingamabob. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. I'll see you next time. Of course, something that can triple reflect. Yay! I got the win! I'm the best player in the world! Full gather set, bro, is insane. No! It's a fire staff! Yeah, let's go! I am going to lose to it. User. I believe this is where I lose. Let's go! GG. Yay! That was so sloppy though. Really good purge. That's a really good purge.